Well, good afternoon, everybody. I would just love to remind everybody that this is not just June and the last month of our fiscal year, but this is also Home Ownership Month for USDA. And so we've got two guests today. I'm super pleased to have them. First is Joaquin Altoro. He's the administrator for USDA Rural Housing Service and has been in that role since November of 21. He's been doing this kind of work for the last 3 decades. I mean, that's your bio. So if you're good with that, man, all right. I'm with you though. I'm counting the decades instead of just the years. I think you came to USDA having served as the director for the Wisconsin Housing and Economic Development Authority. You strategically negotiated the organization on a broader and more holistic approach to leverage all the different kinds of affordable housing resources out there, something I think is near and dear to the way we think. So that is much appreciated. Worked with the Housing Credit Program and the QAP. And I think prior to that was in commercial banking. So we are just really pleased to have you join. Welcome. And then many of you, but not everyone on staff, knows Tom Carew, Dr. Carew, as the state director for USDA Rural Development. And one of the oldest friends I have. I think we've known each other for a really long time, Tom. Prior to his role at USDA, was executive vice president of membership and advocacy for Fahe. In that, and this is something I hope you guys will talk about, is that Tom was our principal author of the 502 packaging. At the time it started was a demonstration program with USDA. He grew the membership here, but prior to that, Tom was with Kentucky Housing Corporation, and preceding that had been the founding director of Frontier Housing, also a founding board member of Fahe and a whole bunch of other stuff around here. Tom was a legend when I moved here in 1990, and that only has grown more. So one reason I asked you good gentlemen to join us today is the 502 packaging, the single family program. One, there's nothing better than the 502 direct program when it comes to serving families across rural America. And second, that packaging partnership, which follows, I think, a long history of Fahe and USDA doing really good work together. We surpassed $500 million of packaged loans just this year. In fact, in this month, we just hit $539 million. I think you got my staff all excited with this idea, and so I got an update on the exact amount this morning. And so I thought, Tom, we might start with you. Just what was the origin story, I guess, and what does it mean to people in communities that this packaging partnership exists? And then I'd like to prompt Joaquin with I think a slightly different prompt. Can we start there?
Sure, Jim. We can do that. So as you said, the 502 direct mortgage is just an outstanding tool to promote homeownership across the United States and to make homeownership a reality for low and very low income families who have no other options. The agency, this was very early in the Obama administration that we began this process, and the agency had gone through several cutbacks in terms of staffing. And for example, in Kentucky, USDA Rural Development, or as Farmers Home Administration, as it was known at the time, had an office basically in every rural county in Kentucky. That's a lot of offices when you consider we have 120 counties. We now have, as a state, Rural Development Office now have 12 offices around the Commonwealth. So it's just an example, or it highlights how we have pulled back from the front lines of serving rural America. Some of that you can justify in terms of technology, of course, and what technology brings to the table. But the agency had closed down quite a few offices and has gone from probably a high of 100, close to 150 staff across the state to 70 across the state. So combine that with how long it was taking to process a 502 direct application, and the need, therefore, and it was getting more difficult for Kentucky to use all of its allocation of 502 dollars, and not just Kentucky, but certainly in the Appalachian region. So how, how could we shorten the timelines, help USDA deliver the product, and the outcome, is the packaging partnership that we developed. It's trying to, what we tried to do was provide a public-private partnership, which is what we have, where USDA could rely on highly trained packaging partners to submit 502 direct applications for funding and shorten the time that it took our staff at USDA to review those applications. I think the evidence, now is that you're at $539 million worth of mortgages, tells us that it's very successful, and it depends on which state you're in. We'd love to do more packaging in Kentucky, but ironically, we're not. But other states have really picked up on it. It's been very successful. I think that's a testament to your staff, Jim, to the fact that your staff figured out a way to make this all happen, because no one had ever done it before. We had to figure out a way. I keep mixing we and they and me. Sorry to be confusing about that. But Fahe had to figure out a way to make it work. And I think certainly Laura Meadows and her staff, Jamie in particular, have really done an excellent job of providing terrific service to folks across the country in terms of packaging. And the fact that Joaquin and the national office have chose to keep this going and expand it is also a testament to the concept. There's more to do yet. While the mortgage industry typically is probably on a 10-day cycle in terms of approving applications, I know in Kentucky, we're probably closer to 30, 45, maybe even 60 days. And my goal for the agency, my suggestion is that Joaquin figure out how to get rid of Unify tomorrow and bring in that new mortgage packaging system that's more a standard of the industry and keeps up with the times as we go forward. But kudos to you and your staff for the great work you've done.
Well, it has very little to do with me. I just get to ask the questions. But you're right. Laura and Jamie and Sarah Hoskin, a whole bunch of folks have done an incredible job. Thanks, Tom. I may come back, but Joaquin, I'm certainly happy to hear anything you want to add to what Tom's offered, but I'm particularly interested in sort of how do you see this relationship working in the future, and what's the implications, maybe even across some of the other housing programs? Or if you want to speak to RD, just sort of generally, you're welcome to it. But,
no, I appreciate it. First of all, just a pleasure to be with a partner like Mr. Carew, the legend, as you put it. And I just really appreciate us being in the meetings that we are, because I want to let you know, if you all worked with him in Fahe, he's a gentleman that takes this very serious and is very comfortable in making sure he challenges the systems. And I appreciate that he does that internally to USDA. He has not changed, if that's how he was before. Were you like that before, Sir Carew? Because and so I really do appreciate him in his asks and his challenges. And I've seen him, but I think everybody understands for whence and where that comes. And so, sir, it's a privilege to be on the call with you. Undersecretary Xochitl She says hello. She passes on my regards, and we absolutely appreciate the close relationship that you have with her, Jim. And so, she says continue to rely on her and continue to know that she's here as a partner. I love that you had asked about the future, right? And I first of all want to start with the fact of what Tom said around there's more to do yet. Like, yes, we should be here first and foremost to celebrate. You said 500 million. I'll say $500 million, because the B word still matters, right? Like, it comes with weight. I think it's changing, but $500 million is impressive. And so I want to make sure that I take that moment, because that $500 million, when we extrapolate it and we take everything aside and we push it, think about the people that really had to, get the scrapes and the cuts and the tears and the happiness and all of that comes from that $500 million. And so with the deepest regard and just respect for the work that has been put behind that. I think we're in a really unique time right now. And think about this, and I know I'm speaking to the choir at this, but if we think about the last 25 years when it comes to housing, the only time that we've heard about housing is when it was strictly discussed as an urban issue. When it was talking about regional policy, media, when the media would talk about it, even when there was attention given by philanthropy, it was because housing and affordability was and somewhat continues to be an urban issue. But something's happening right now. There's a renaissance happening, which to me excites me. I really truly believe that the conversation of housing and affordability now is now becoming a priority to our national agenda. And the reason why is because it's percolating from rural America. It's percolating from the energy, the sweat, and the tears that you all are putting to this. How do I know this? Because of the fact that as I travel all over, I'm starting to see now that a lot of our elected officials that had no interest or maybe didn't understand how housing just touches everything, now they're at the table. Now we're receiving emails. Now we're asking calls for technical assistance. Now they want to show up to everything and anything. Now they have all the really tough questions and they're asking, how do we help? At the same time, and you heard me, I was a banker for 30 some years. And so I don't have that much federal background, but we had 3 Senate committee testimonies this year from outside partners, and all of them screamed at the top of their head, all the different partners that were unrelated screamed at the top of their head is that, yes, we would like to see more resources for us on self-help, packaging, 502, but we need you all, our Senate, to make an investment into our rural housing service, into its modernization, I'm making words up here, modernization of technology, and into its operations and the people internally. And so it's starting to happen. We're getting folks and we're getting folks sniffing around us and saying, what do you need? What do you need? It's not happening soon enough. That's going back to what you had said, Tom, around the fact that there's more to do yet. But I feel like I would ask, the future is that you all continue to push on helping us design a system that is efficient for the packaging, and is continue to advocate, continue to spread the word about rural housing service. Like, if there ever was a time that we have to do it, now is the time. You all know that we exist, but I've been in many places in rural America that they have no idea that rural housing service exists. And so I think as we continue to spread this word, our elected officials, from our most localized to obviously our national elected officials, will know that we exist and that we matter, that this conversation matters. I think that's really important. So that puts maybe an additional hat on you, but then I think you get it, right? Because Jim, we've been in many meetings where, again, you thanked us for our relationship, but quickly thereafter, you've expressed the frustrations in how you want to see the machine work. And I think investment, I know an investment from our Congress is going to be really important so that we can move some mountains going forward. And so, again, I'm just very thankful for us to be a part of this conversation. Continue to challenge us. You know, you've had our undersecretary and I always here with an open door and an open ear to hear from you all.
Wow, that was great. Thank you. I didn't know I had to express frustration. I'll bear that in mind.
I feel I myself probably am as equally as frustrated, but I think we exude it in a different way as a point of opportunity. So,
well, I think we just so what the charges I hear is we need to hit more $500 million or $1 billion thresholds quicker. I mean, I think, and that just creates pressure, I think, for authorizing more funding for what I think is maybe the most powerful housing program in all the federal government. Tom, you want to add anything else?
No, I don't, Jim. I think that Joaquin's really covered it well. So just historically speaking, to create this, it took a national partnership. Fahe had to reach out to other partners across the country because this is a national program, and Fahe is very good at partnering with other regional organizations like Fahe. So that's very important and something to keep in mind as you go forward. This didn't happen overnight. It took quite a few years to make it happen. And if you want to make things like this happen, it takes an investment. And so would encourage you to keep on that line and that path as you go forward.
This may seem a little tactical given how visionary I think Joaquin's comments were, but what comes to mind for either of you as sort of the top one or two things that we would need to address to hit the next $500 million in a year or two?
I'll take a stab at that. And it's certainly a modern modern underwriting system, as both of us have addressed. It's very important. And the agency only can do that when Congress appropriates the funds to do it. And so, that's why it's going to be important for our partners across the country to remind Congress that those kind of funds are important. I think the other thing is Unify was customized to try and deal with 502 the way it is, with the rules and regulations it is. Going forward, and it was an in-house program written in DOS. But going forward, we really need a product that keeps up with the times, so that an industry standard, so to speak, maybe with a 502 package that ties into it. Don't know technically how that happens, but we really need to, USDA needs to be using an industry standard product, I believe, if at all possible, as we go forward.
Jim, the reason why it took me a couple minutes here, because I was trying to think of something new, and I didn't want to repeat exactly what, but I mean, if we're going to get to the crux of it, your advocacy is really important. We know, and we've been hearing from a lot of external partners, is that they've been pushing very hard to have housing addressed within the Farm Bill. And so we know that there's a lot of people pushing very hard. And if that is a part of your advocacy, we thank you also on that end. I would say if I were to come up with something a little bit different is really beginning to understand, and if it's through packaging or not, is just supply and new construction. And it's not as simple as just saying we got to participate in new construction, because there's just a whole system that has to support new construction. They had innovative housing on the National Mall this weekend and this week. And so they were showing all these pre-manufactured housing, or CLT, timber, 3D houses. And so I think all of our partners that are involved in the pipeline of providing financing, we also have to understand, how do we get involved in making sure that we support just the whole spectrum of new construction? Where do we step in, and how do we get involved? Because we know that we have a dwindling supply, and it's dwindling very fast due to the age of our housing.
Good points. Good point. I would add one more thing in this from a historical perspective. The upside of having staff in 120 counties in Kentucky is that you've got somebody local or there. one of the difficult things about modernizing that system is that we had 120 different people with different rules and regulations, even though it's a national program and should be national, it should be the same wherever we go across the country. There were lots of people, as you know, as humans will do, interpreting rules and regulations that unfortunately in some places were prejudiced against single women, single unmarried women in the Deep South against African Americans, and in the Southwest against Hispanics. So, and certainly on our Native American reservations, lots of issues. So the modern underwriting system, while it has some weaknesses, has eliminated some of those internal biases, which has been a good thing.
And if we don't modernize, then the ability to scale later just, it's not possible, right? I do think that the strength of what we've done together so far is, though, about relationships. And so I think you can count on us for certainly some advocacy and coming to the table when there are things that we think might make this better. But our biggest investment is going to be with state directors and field staff and trying to make that work. And I think it's been the leadership of USDA to make that happen where we've had the most success. So for me, I think getting into states where we haven't had as much success, I think does require, casting a vision and leadership from not just from Fahe, but from rural development as well. Before I open it up the floor